Good evening and welcome to CellarPass TV Live. We are here for our season premiere of our 2021 season of live virtual tastings with some of the most colorful and notable characters from wine countries all over the country. Tonight we have the legendary V Sattui Winery and Tom Davies and his hat, which is just about as legendary as the property. And of course, as always, we have Chris Sawyer, rockstar sommelier. So let's get sipping. Hopefully you've got something nice in your glass. You can tell us all about it on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. And hey guys, cheers, welcome.
Cheers.
Jeez,
Thank
clink,
you.
clink, clink, virtual clinks. I'm so excited to have you here in this. We've already kind of been working on the rosé and I am in love with this. This is such a beautiful, dry, kind of Provençal style. It's insane. Definitely perfect for a nice spring day, which I hear you guys have enjoyed all day long. Tom, tell us a little bit about what's in our glass tonight.
Oh, thank you. And Sarah and Christopher, thanks for having me on this show. This is really a great way to start the new year. And, we fell in love up in Anderson Valley, a few decades ago. And I think we planted this vineyard, maybe not for the right reason. We planted it because we just love the area so much. It's so beautiful up there. And so we planted Pinot and some Gewürztraminer and Rieslings. And, it's just been part of our portfolio for so many years. And this is really the first time, we've been typically making just a red Pinot from this. And so with the Rosado craze, we thought, well, let's try a little bit of this as a dry style rosé, and it's just been a knockout. Great.
Oh my gosh, this is I take a whole barrel. I mean, this is gonna last you from March all the way through Thanksgiving. This is incredible. I mean, just the flavors. You've got strawberry and florals.
Raspberry.
It's just beautiful.
Fantastic. I think that the important thing too about it is it's called Rosado. So we are kind of going with the Italian theme of the Sattui family, of course, versus Rosé, which would be common, or Vin Gris. Sometimes you'll see it spelled out that way. I'm doing a story right now for Napa Valley Life on rosés, but this Rosado will be in that story too. I think that Tom totally nailed it right there. Is it Pinot Noir in Anderson Valley? It's such a special place for it. And I think that a lot of Napa Valley vintners, you guys being among the very first to really start investing in an estate property up there, has really made a big deal. It's back in the old days, Pinot Noir, I did this thing on the appellation itself. So in 1983, there were 500 acres of Riesling, Gewürztraminer, and white grapes there, and there were 53 acres of Pinot Noir. Pinot was nothing back then. Now it's about the same for the whites, and it's about 2,600 acres of Pinot Noir up there. So it obviously has caught on. There's a big deal up there. And I think that, your property up there is really special. I've been there with Brooks Painter, the great Brooks, the winemaker extraordinaire for V Sattui wines.
Thank you, Brooks.
And we were there with him looking at that vineyard. It is a piece of art right there. And I think that really just the clarity and the freshness of this wine that really kind of comes out is a great example of what Anderson Valley is and why Pinot Noir works in that area.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the nice words about Brooks, and I'll echo that. He's become a great friend. He's an amazing winemaker, and he has talents. A lot of winemakers can do a few wines very, very well, but with the portfolio here at V Sattui, and we have a mountain of different kinds of wines. He just has this amazing talent over a broad spectrum to make just a lot of really delicious wines. And he has an amazing palate. Of course, we got a great team, and David Behar, who's our vineyard manager, has been with us now going on nearly 30 years. He was just voted Grape Grower of the Year about 2 years ago by the Wine Business Monthly, and just a great farmer. So you have these people that are just dedicated. About 70% of what we produce here at V Sattui is from our own estate vineyards. So we really believe in having this estate approach and having, you know, to really farm, you know, from the ground up and get it into the bottle and people that really care, you know, about what goes in the glass. And so anyway, thank you about the nice words about Brooks. He's super guy.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that I see too with the winery itself, I mean, we'll go into the history of the winery in a few minutes, but and St. Helena too, but I think that really as a national wine judge and all the great, you know, judging things that I get to do, you know, you have won, the winery itself has won the top award at the state fair, which I judge. It's won it, actually there at one point, I think it was in the 90s, you won 4 out of 5 years. You know, you were just like, ring them in. And I think that the same thing is consistency. When I think about V Sattui, I think about consistency. I think about great clarity as far as the sites that you really work with. And I think that, you know, putting it in front of consumers is one thing, but when you put it in front of a bunch of us judges and we don't know what we're tasting and it continuously wins these great awards. There was one that, you know, Robert Whitley, the great Robert Whitley, it was the best winery of the West Coast in the U.S. Critics Challenge that it won just a few years ago too. And so I think that, you know, we are seeing so much of so many wineries out there today versus when you started in 1976. But boy, how you match up with all of them it's so great to see. I'm not surprised when you're one of the top wines of each competition I judge. I'm not surprised at all. It's wonderful.
You know, I think we're able to stay in our lane. You know, and we'll talk about this, but we sell all our wines here at the winery. So 100% is direct to consumer. So we have a winemaker. If I'm looking for Brooks, I either look in his office, I look in the cellar, or I look in the vineyard, and that's it. He's
That's
here.
where it's gonna be.
And so we don't put winemakers on the road to do winemaker events across the country. You know,
You don't have to.
We're here every single day from top to bottom. And so I think it makes a difference not only with the quality of wines that we produce, it makes a difference with the experiences that we have, because 100% of what we do goes into what happens on this property. And I think that's been kind of the secret sauce.
Absolutely. And it's really special that, you know, I think as a consumer, you know, being able or going to a winery that is 100% estate, you know, you can only get the wines there like you do at V Sattui. It's not that common. A lot of small producers still do it. You guys aren't exactly a small producer these days, but you still held true to those roots. And I think that's one thing that sets you guys apart in so many ways. And we'll talk about all the other ways that you guys are so unique. Tell me a little bit about that amazing hat you're wearing.
So we started doing videos here maybe 15, 20 years ago. And it was Gary Vanderchuck that got us into that. And I don't know how long Gary's been doing the videos, but a buddy that I had here at the winery, we came up with the idea of doing a video called The Wine Guys. And it was just two of us with a camera talking about wines, and then we'd have a sale at the end of the video. Hey, if you put in this code, you can get a discount on this wine. And we wanted to do something unique, so we both thought, well, let's just put on hats. And that's really how the hat started. I wasn't even wearing a hat.
You're like, okay.
And so we put on the hats, and then to start the videos, I think you can probably still find them online if you just Google V Sattui Wine Guys. And you'll see two hats sitting on a table, and that's how each video started. And we had a lot of fun. We broadcast. It wasn't live, but we would take from a vineyard somewhere out in the winery. And so that's how it started. And now, just as you said, I didn't have it on to start the show. Yeah. Where's my hat? So now if I don't wear my hat, people get upset. So now I'm kind of like, I have to wear it.
Oh, I didn't get upset. For me, I recognize you from, like, you know, when all the events, you know, we attend, and, you know, Auction Napa Valley, and I think everybody just froze. But looking for you in the hat is what, you know, there's Tom, you can see him. Everybody's frozen. Yeah. What happened? We lost our internet?
Did we kill it?
I didn't kill it.
her and her friends would drive.
Hey, sorry
Hey,
about
there you
that.
are. There you are. That's okay. So Tom and I were just talking about how in 1976, when the winery was founded, you know, my mom would take me over there with her friends, and I'd be in the back of the car, and they would go wine tasting. There were only a few wineries, you guys. And for those of you that know Napa Valley, the problem now is like, where do we go? There's too many.
Overwhelming. Well, that's why CellarPass was born.
But back then, there really wasn't much. And
No.
there was a lot of vineyards, but there were also a lot of groves of fruit trees. You know, this is like, it was like really super agricultural back then. I think when Dario came in, that was his dream, to bring back the tradition, you know, that his family started in Genoa, you know, going back to Italian roots. And that's exactly what Napa Valley looked like back then. And I think that that's a real trademark of V Sattui, being really one of the first ones to open. You know, you go back to, you know, Robert Mondavi opening in 1966, and how these kinds of things kind of rolled down, but there were not many wineries there. And this is your 45-year anniversary. And I think that's like such an amazing accomplishment, you know?
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Well, thank you
Well,
for that.
cheers to that.
Yeah.
Clink, 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 clink all around.
And then, but you know, we also think, and you're right, in our modern day history, that's our anniversary. But you know, we have these phenomenal roots back to 1885, when
Right.
Vittorio came and founded the winery right in San Francisco, right on North Beach Avenue, just down from North Beach Restaurant. And then they
Oh,
moved
wow.
the winery to the corner of 23rd and Bryant and Mission, and that building still exists. And he was sourcing grapes from St. Helena back at that time, and the winery actually was really quite successful. And Chris and Sarah, as you know, most of the wineries during that time, that era, were in the city, because that's where it was easy to distribute wines,
Right.
and where commerce was. And but yet the wines were, of course, grown up here. And then, of course, a very bad thing happened, and that was Prohibition. And so when Dario was going to school and graduated from Cal, an MBA, he thought, well, this would be great. I want to revive my family's winery. So this is in the mid 70s. Of course, he knew, you know, nothing about wine. He had no money. And even at the time, UC Davis was saying that, you know, if you want to start a winery in the Napa Valley, you need about $1 million. You know, as we all know, land's
It's not cheap.
expensive, equipment's not inexpensive. And so he wouldn't take no for an answer. He finally raised about $52,000, of which $5,000 was his own money
Oh,
that he had raised selling T-shirts at San Jose State for his undergrad. And
I love it.
he came up here, and at the location where we are now, he got a lease option on about a 4-acre parcel. But he had this amazing idea, and he knew he was completely underfunded from the beginning. So he knew there's no way that I could have the traditional model, selling wine 3-tier, you know, through the different stores and distributors and such, because you give away too much profit. He thought, well, what if I were to start this, you know, revive my great-grandfather's winery, make small lots of wine, sell it direct to the consumer, but how do I get them to stop here? And so he came up with this amazing idea to have a little deli, have picnic tables where people could come and sit outside and look at the beauty of the valley, you know, again, live this Italian love of life of eating salami and cheese and French bread. And so then he had to find, you know, a parcel that supported the zoning, because, you know, even at the time, you know, that as part of the zoning in Napa, you couldn't have a commercial business on ag land. And so he was able to find this little parcel, and that's the reason we can have a deli today. And so the, you know, the kind of the rest is history.
Deli is amazing. So V Sattui is actually the very first winery I've ever visited when I was in Napa Valley, and just on a whim. And that's what's actually so sweet about your property is, you know, you guys are so unpretentious. At that time, I was, you know, 21-ish, 22 probably. Didn't know a whole lot about wine, but I had moved to Napa Valley, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go out and explore. So I just popped in, and it was such a wonderful, just genuine experience. The hospitality is so warm. You didn't feel awkward being there, and it was so comfortable. Your deli blew me away. And just to sit out there, it was a hot summer day underneath the giant trees and the shade, and there's just something just magical about that whole property, and the warmth, as you know, you and I were talking earlier. It's just, there's just something very special about that, and you haven't changed that feeling at all. You know, reservations have entered the world, and it's great, you know, to be able to plan your trip and use CellarPass to do that. But still today you can, you know, well, not today, but when open, you can, you know, pop in and without having a reservation and just have a relaxing, casual experience. And then you have all of your other experiences on top of that, that your guests can choose from, your tours. And there's just so much amazingness. And the cellar that you're in, I've tiptoed down there once before, and it is so cool. So cool. And I just love it. There's just certain properties in the various wine countries that steal your heart, and V Sattui is definitely one of those.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing too. Just as a kid, you know, when my mom would take me over there with her friends, we would stop at V Sattui, and we would get little sandwiches and salads and everything. And you got to remember, back in the old days of Napa Valley, like Yountville, you didn't stop in Yountville to go to Bouchon and all these things. They weren't there.
No.
You know, you stopped there maybe for gas, but there was nothing going on there. This was right on Highway 29, and you could see people having a picnicky experience, drinking fine wines.
You're like,
really
I want to be there.
It was, you know, and it still is Little Italy right there. That is in a heartbeat. That's exactly what Italy is known for, is cuisine. Number one thing in Italy is all about cuisine. And I think that really the family, and how especially Dario came and spent all the money he had, and you know this, Tom, too. I mean, he didn't have hardly any money. I mean, he slept on the floor there as it was being constructed. I mean, this is a man whose heart was all in. He was all in or nothing, you know. And what an accomplishment. But I think that the deli really had that was a honing device for people to go, we should stop here. And then the wine, they taste the wine, they're like, oh, this is amazing wine. Let's continue to stop here often. So yes. I think that, cheers to that.
Well, cheers. That was definitely brilliant.
Well, and I don't know if there's much to add because you've said everything, but.
Oh, then we'll just wrap the show. We're good. We got it. Check.
You're right. It's, you know, Sarah, I think you said the word genuine. And I really pride ourselves that it's authentic, it's genuine, it's comforting. And that's kind of the larger picture. And you're right. It's that, in Christopher, it's that Italian feel that we want to make people feel comfortable. And, you know, sometimes, you know, there's wineries that, you know, if the wine tender, you know, if you mispronounce a word or a wine, you know, they get on you. I mean, we've never been that way. We've never been pretentious. We know there's a bigger picture here of making people feel comfortable, and of course, delivering the best experience, the best food, the best wine. And the deli, I mean, we've always had amazing cheeses, and we have close to 200 different cheeses from around the world. And the last time I counted up, I think we had 1 year we sold 562 different types of cheese in 1 year. And because we have so many visitors, you know, we can stock a lot of really unusual cheeses, you know, because if you're in a grocery store, maybe you don't have the turnover. And so we can have a lot of great choices. And then over the years, we've just kept, you know, adding and adding. And so, you know, I love Italy. You know, I met my bride here at the winery 40 years ago. We just had our 40th anniversary of meeting each other, and she, Kara, worked in the deli.
No way.
And she actually, and that the reason she knew of the place, and Christopher, you were saying, she grew up in Rutherford, and she would come up with her mom, and they would buy cheese at the deli. And so we had always a lot of locals here, because we were really the place. It was either Keller's Market in St. Helena.
Love Keller's.
She worked at Keller's too, so I think that's the reason Dario hired her. She had experience working at Keller's Market, and so that's where we met. And of course, we, you know, the rest is history. But you know, it was if you look back, and we have so many special years. I mean, again, we had so little. For 3 years, you know, this is my 40th anniversary. We're now going 41st vintage. You know, we bottled everything by hand. We hand corked each bottle. You know, we had no money. In the old days, we had to, if we needed to order corks or glass, we would call the purveyors collect. In other words, if we make them accept the call if it was long distance, because we just, and we turn the lights out if we left the room. And on and on.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of people that don't even know what calling collect even means these days, but it's where you got the recipient of the phone call to pay for that call. Which
that's right.
I totally get it. That's
anyway,
awesome.
So today, fast forward, so for our love of Italy, I thought, this is about 5 years ago, wouldn't it be great to have our own salumi? So, okay, we went to Italy and we found a guy that has now helped us. He's turned out to be now here 6 months out of the year. He's had a Michelin star for 10 years in Italy, and he's now helped us put together a salumi program. So we now make our own house-cured salumi, all the different cheeses, Italian chefs. We have these amazing barbecues on weekends. We now have a food truck, so we do everything from ribs and pizzas, and then just on and on. Mozzarella, we make fresh mozzarella here every day. And so again, that's just part of it. But it really, again, all comes back to this.
Yeah,
it does.
Great wines and great food have always, they're best friends. And then you have the Italian culture on top of that, the family, and you guys have nailed it. It is, you feel comfortable, you feel like family when you're at V Sattui, and I think you've done a wonderful job at doing that. So cheers to you guys.
Yeah.
So that's a good lead in to this next subject, which is this amazing Zinfandel. So when we talk about Zinfandel, remember 1976 when this brand started. What else happened that year? Oh, there was this thing called the tasting. Oh, hello. But
kind of a big deal.
Cabernet was not the main grape grown in Napa Valley at that point. It was Zinfandel and Petit Syrah. And this wine, to me, really brings back that tradition. And you guys have never stopped making Zinfandel, and it's so great. And, if you get to Napa Valley and you're tasting all these great Cabernets, and we're going to taste one in a minute, but the fact is Zinfandel really is what made the foundation there, that improved that you could grow great grapes there. And I love the fact that this is from ancient vines. So we talk about ancient vines, there's a lot of different definitions of what an ancient vine is. For me, I mean, we kept going by like World War II, if it was before World War II. Now it's kind of like the Korean War. If it was before the Korean War in the 50s, yeah. But, when we talk about old style and what St. Helena was back then, you had gnarly old vineyards like these that were already old by the time you planted these grapes. So that's why I think it's fantastic that you put ancient vines on here. And it's just a real tradition. So tell us a little bit about this vineyard, Tom, and how this all worked itself out to bottle this by itself.
Sure, it's a great story. So these vineyards were planted, we think sometime back in the 30s. That's when the Qualia family acquired this vineyard. And if you're familiar with St. Helena, you go downtown, you want to head west up Spring Street, and kind of smack dab in the middle of a residential area is this little vineyard of these gnarly old vines. And I didn't know, when I moved to here to the Valley 40 years ago, I didn't know the Qualia family. But but I fell in love with a local, and so Kara, her maiden name is Gelli. So of course I learned a lot about Italian roots here.
Oh yeah.
And so the Gellis and the Qualias were really good friends, and so I got to know them really right out of the gate in the early '80s, and they often would invite Kara and I and her parents and the Qualias would have dinner. And Ray Qualia would bring over this homemade Qualia Zinfandel. So I started drinking this wine back in the 80s. And I always remember where it said alcohol on the label, it was always a question mark.
Maybe?
Because
a little bit.
Alcohol was usually pretty high. And but they
yes.
did it right in the basement of their house, which now his son lives in, and right on Spring Street. And so in 1989, Ray Qualia and my father-in-law, Chops Gelli, started the St. Helena Bocce Ball Club along with two other fellows.
So you're to blame.
And so they, the St. Helena wouldn't give them any money. So they raised their own funds to build the courts. And so we started playing bocce. So I was on the very first bocce clubs in St. Helena. This is 30 years ago or more. And Ray would always bring his Zinfandel, and if it was summertime and it was warm, he'd always wrap it in a newspaper that was wet to keep the bottle cold. That's just what I remember.
Smart.
So I kept asking, Ray, can you sell us some of these grapes? So they finally, in 1993, he says, okay, Tom, I only make so little, I think I can, there's only 5 tons we usually get out of this vineyard, I'll sell it to you. So in 1993, we made our very first Qualia Vineyard Zinfandel. So now the vines are pushing 100 years old, close to that. And it's we make 13 different Zinfandels, and I love Zin. And our customers love Zinfandel. It's a grape that's so transparent. It really speaks to its terroir. It speaks to its origin. Chris said, all this stuff in Sarah too. It's just all about where that grape grows. And so we have all these different appellations, and we get Zin from up in Amador and Lodi and Dry Creek and St. Helena. And of course, we're famous for our, we've been getting Black Sears, High Mountain Zin forever up there. We even, in the old days, we bought it from Bob Lamborn. That's another blast from the past. And,
so good.
So this is, so again, it's part of our culture, and this has just been one of those singular wines that, and I love this 18 vintage. It's still young. It took a little.
It's gorgeous.
To open up in the glass, but
it really did. It was a little bit, it was good, and those berries were there, but now it's really expanded, and the licorice and all these kinds of things. The first thing I started thinking about now is like meatballs. I need some lamb meatballs.
Ooh, yum.
That pasta, and just let it flow. The pepper is there. Everything that you love about Zinfandel is in it. It's such
an easy drinker. Scarily, it's an easy drinker. So I can understand why this was coming to bocce nights for sure. I mean, this is just,
classic.
I mean, you can put a couple bottles away. And I make this incredible lamb ragu I would need at least 3 bottles, because you gotta put 1 bottle in the sauce. And well, you're gonna need at least 2 for the table. But it is, everything you want. Lamb is incredible. And actually tomorrow night we're doing grilled lamb chops. So you know what? We're gonna finish off tomorrow night for sure.
Boom.
Yeah, done. Dinner planning here on CellarPass TV. We got it. we got you covered. We're gonna do recipe pairings and stuff later on in the season for sure. But we're just getting started here. This is beautiful. What I like about this Zin is it hasn't lost that fruit. It's not jammy, where you get a lot of that is like Smuckers, but it's there and it's beautiful, and it's just rounds it out so nicely. So I'm definitely a fan of this one. And
just again, another shout out to Brooks. This is where his talents are. Is that you can take it, because you got to be really careful. I mean, Zinfandel on any one cluster, you can have fruit that's overripe, underripe,
green berries. It's a mess.
So it's really easy for Zinfandels just to get really pruny and plummy, and so he knows how to just kind of take it right up to the edge, that the edge of the envelope, and then he just hits it out of the park. And
so good.
And so he's got, again, major talents making good.
Qualia
Vineyard.
Oh my gosh.
So good. And I just think that too, like, you remember the Zinfandel movement and how it really started, about 30 years ago, and the ZAP organization, which you guys have been a great part of. And the fact is that the preservation of these old vineyards is really preserving Napa Valley history. And I think that really how this wine speaks on its own, there's a lot of stuff, other great wineries that do a really good job with that right there. Robert Bialy obviously sources fruit from there. There's Chase Cellars. There's some of these little nooks and cranny wineries that wouldn't give up their land or the life of these vines, which are still alive after, 80 years, 90 years, 125 years, they're still sitting there. Why wouldn't you pull it out and put it in Cabernet? Because they have their own personalities. That's why. And I think that this really speaks for that. And I think that the yummy factor is definitely here. But it's not like going back to what Zinfandel was like back 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Porty. A lot of them were porty. And this is not porty at all. This has actually got that That
Good
elegant,
balance.
it's a rustic note to it, and those spices are so great that's why we're talking about fun food, you know, and really having a great time with this. This would be great with barbecue. It would be great with so many different things. And like you said, Tom, you know, like you guys do a great, like kind of a fire pit there where you do barbecue, and this is the kind of wine you really want with that.
Oh, barbecue and Zinfandel. That's a match made in
We
heaven.
have this amazing chipotle ribs that we do at the barbecue. And I mean, we just have these wonderful Zin pairings, and everything pairs so well with Zin, I think. And then, of course, we do pizzas, and of course, Zinfandel and pizza is just, and just
So
one
much
more
fun.
thing about the Qualia family. So Mike Qualia, which is Ray's son, he grew up here in St. Helena. He worked here as in our support staff, washing glasses in the tasting room. And now his son, Aaron, is working here. So
That's so wonderful.
part of 3 generations of the Qualia family, and you know, and I worry a lot about these heritage vineyards, and because once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's an economic decision, I think, for a lot of people. Of course, we all know that Cabernet you can get so much more per ton, and these old vines, you know, just eke out maybe a ton and a half an acre compared. You know, and then how much are people going to pay for Zinfandel grapes? I mean, not anywhere near what they pay.
Oh, I wish they would. I mean, you know, I say, and I've said it earlier, you know, I think this is such an under-celebrated varietal. I mean, Cab, you know, Napa Valley's Cab country, and we know that, but it was Zinfandel country. And I think it was short-sighted rewinding the clock so many decades ago to rip those vineyards out. There's been so many, you know, small wineries and vineyards I visited over the years, and they talk about, well, it wasn't always Cab, it used to be Zinfandel. And I'm like, that's a damn shame. You know, it should still be Zinfandel. One of my first jobs when I moved to Napa Valley was at Clos de Val, and they had an incredible Zinfandel. I want to say it was out of Yountville. And I remember touring the vineyard, and it was that just craggly, gnarly vines. I'm like, these are so cool. Again, knew like nothing about wine, but I knew that those vines were just the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And then tasting the wine that came from those vineyards, beautiful. And they're like, well, get your pictures now because we're pulling that vineyard out. And I'm like, again, damn shame. You know, like why? Like what's wrong with them? And it, you know, as my, you know, career and palate and everything would develop, I had found such a fondness in Zinfandel. And I love a really killer Cab, who doesn't? But Zinfandel, as you said, it goes with everything. You know, it's up there with sparkling wine for me. You know, it has such a variety of pairings and moods that, you know, like I said earlier, I'm like, this, you could just drink this alone. Then you put food into the picture. Oh my God. You know, it's gotcha. This is a fabulous, like perfect wine in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and as people come and they taste wines here at the winery, of course, we love our big cabs, as you were mentioning, but it's just one of these wines people, once they, and I know it's a tough sell if you're in the restaurant business, you probably don't sell a lot of Zinfandel in restaurants, and people want to drink what's fashionable.
Right.
But boy, once you come and you can taste some really great Zins, you get it. You finally get it.
Totally
These
get it.
delicious wines, and because of the wonderful black fruits and they're just juicy and fruity, they do drink well by themselves, or just with some cheese. And you know,
simple pairings.
Cabernets are just in another whole league, but it's just a wine that you can drink midweek, and it doesn't have to have any big celebration or
your Monday through Thursday wine, you know, like tonight.
And so anyway, good. Well, I'm glad you love it, because it's certainly it's a favorite of ours here at V Sattui, and we have a lot of fans that just love our Zins.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think when, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but what do you think the lack of recognition of Zinfandel is? Like, we're talking about the restaurants and stuff not being able to really sell it because people are going with what's fashionable. I know Zap has done, you know, an amazing job of trying to really, you know, push and educate people on the magic of Zinfandel. But I mean, I think, you know, people just need to know if people would try it, their minds would be blown.
I think that it's gone a long ways. And, you know, I'll say that one of the great ones that I went to, one of the great learning experiences of where the new trend has gone was one that Turley did, was a presentation that Zap did, and Turley was there. And I love that wine. It was blind tasting. I didn't know what it was. But the fact was that, you know, the alcohol was low in that. And there have become these styles that, especially the styles that Brooks make, that are young, fruity, wonderful. They go with such a wide range of food that the cuisine and how we know cuisine today has changed so much that it's so inviting to buy these kinds of wines. And I think that
Absolutely.
Napa Valley has done a good job in preserving what is still left. And I think this is a great example of that. And it's going to continue on as people really understand this. They want to buy Cabernet in Napa Valley, and Cabernet, no doubt. But when they get the chance to taste these kinds of wines, they're going to buy some of this too,
Absolutely.
because that's going to be their everyday wine. And it's going to delight them to the same exact formula that Cabernet would. And I think that sommeliers are starting to really get more of a hold on this. And, you know, there's a lot of great sommeliers that are part of the ZAP organization too. And we do it, you know, past few years, obviously we're not doing it this year there, at One Market in San Francisco, and doing it at that place and having so many sommeliers there. They're so excited about picking some of these wines up, you know. I think it's really different. And I think that the way that these wines are being made, especially Brooks style and the V Sattui style, is exactly what we need in these restaurants. And we're seeing some growth there, I think.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, true. And I just think, you know, just getting the word out and sharing it, like, you know, through like this, like, you know, letting people know these wines are amazing. And if you have the opportunity, order some. And you do have the opportunity, because you can go to V Sattui Winery's website and order them all day long. And even better, you guys can, you know, order them, pick them up. And of course, once they're reopened again, which should be very soon, we're starting to see a lot of the California wineries or wine regions open up. You know, go and experience it firsthand, which is always the best way to experience the wines.
Yeah, I think before we get into Cabernet, because that's
time.
a very great subject, I do want to say one thing about this wine. Again, going back to the amazing rosé or rosato as we tasted it, when we talk about food and what I would be pairing this with right now. So, you know, the great thing about Anderson Valley is Pinot Noir is the king variety right there. But this is such a good one. Right now, pomegranates are out. You can buy pomegranate, spinach salad with pomegranate. And red onions is exactly what you need with this. It's also those kinds of light, springy types of soups that you have that are very fresh. Obviously, that's a great one. Lox and Bagels. Give me this. You know,
simple. So simple.
You could do a sparkling wine. Good idea too.
Yep.
But if you have something like this is going to make everything pop.
Just it's that fresh fruitiness to it.
Yeah, and I just love these kinds of wines. Also, you know, for what you guys sell there too, Tom, especially at the deli, goat cheese. Goat cheese. Hello.
Oh, absolutely.
This and goat cheese with some fresh berries. Done. You sign me up.
Perfection. Absolutely.
I think that's really the thing about really what the winery is about, is not just about wine, it's about food. And so this is a great example of that too. And all these starting dishes that you could do to get to this nice red wine, you can start it out with this kind of fine wine.
Oh yeah. This, so you're talking about the goat cheese, and then you're pulling back to the salomis, a pomegranate walnut roasted red pepper spread with the goat cheese and a piece of salami on a baguette, and you have got absolute heaven. Absolute heaven.
I'm there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's so many other varieties, and I get so frustrated, you know, because in the marketplace, of course, Cabernets are king, but there's so many other great varieties.
Wake up, America. We have so many great wines to try.
And wake up. And so we celebrate that here at V Sattui. We do make a lot of really different varieties, and we have so much fun with it. And our guests love that for us. And it becomes an excursion for them when they come and they can taste so many different wines and open their eyes to the world, that it doesn't have to be just Chardonnay and Cabernet.
No, there's so many beautiful wines, and I love that about V Sattui. You guys have like I said, you guys just are the picture of perfection when it comes to not being afraid to offer an incredible variety, and you do each one very well, and that's not something a lot of wineries can say. And so it just, you guys are I don't know. You're
So
just
here,
absolutely magical in my opinion.
So this is, as we know, this has been, this last year has been really tough, and we've had, sheltering at home and such. And so for this next wine, and this is, our Mount Veeder Cabernet, a big cab.
Oh yeah, mountain fruit all the way in this one.
It deserves my shelter at home glass.
Oh my gosh. One glass, one bottle. We're good. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it.
Chris, I think you probably would approve of this because.
Oh my God.
Do you take that to auction? I mean, that would be hilarious.
This is, part of enjoying wine is getting your nose right inside the glass. You can really do that with this particular wine. And I have to tell you, during this lockdown and this, hopefully this thing ends here quickly.
It will.
It's been this glass and the wine that's been in it that's gotten me through these tough times.
Cheers. I think that's about all that has worked in many months now.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that are watching this show right now. They're holding their glass and cheering us.
Absolutely. Well, I know that there's a few viewers that were, definitely opening up the Mount Veeder tonight in celebration with us, which is fantastic. And I see Linda Dozier from Georgia. She's back online checking us out again. She's so happy we're back on air. And Eric Griffin says, thanks, Tom, for my first cellar job. So, we got lots of people checking out tonight. And this, I think the last year and the lockdowns, if you are into wine at all, it really taught you it's time to open that bottle. All those that you've been socking away and saving for that special moment, I know I cannot be alone that many of those have been opened in the last several months because you know what? If we're going to be stuck at home, you might as well be drinking really well and creating new memories. And there's been a lot of fun memories. I mean, as much as we don't want to repeat any of this ever again.
That is so well said, Sarah. And I want to keep it upbeat, but I just lost a dear friend who's a part of our winery, and for many years, and unfortunately died from COVID.
I'm so sorry.
But I had this bottle of wine that we had promised to drink together, and it didn't happen. So absolutely,
open
those bottles, because you just never know what's around the bend. And celebrate life and
be in the present. Don't wait for tomorrow. And I think if anything, that's what I learned out of all the last several months. Be today, because COVID aside, nothing's promised, so go for it, enjoy it, celebrate every day because it is a gift. And cheers.
Glasses like this, it's easy to do that.
Here, mine looks bigger if I do this. There we go. Now I'm in my glass. This is incredible.
My point would just be, and I've been obviously my cellar. I'm pretty loaded here as far as content, but
lucky duck. Look at you.
So many older wines, and it. I think that the other part is, and it really fits with V Sattui, is telling the story about how you got that bottle of wine to someone that you remember it, but you haven't been able to tell it to anyone. I think that, with my brother who came for Thanksgiving, sharing wines with him, that he never even knew these stories about me and what I did with how these wines came about. I think the V Sattui stories are so great for so many people that would laugh about these amazing things that they had with their 8 friends that were sitting there at that picnic table out in front, and these crazy things that happen around it. But it's no fun unless you can tell those stories. No one's going to laugh unless you get to tell it. And this is really those moments where I think these wines are really coming in. Their importance is even bigger now because of our lack of opportunities to be able to visit these wineries right now, and V Sattui being at the top of that list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So, what do you think of this Mount Veeder cabin?
Well, I love it. Let's just explain this to everyone too, where Mount Veeder is. So, St. Helena is the home of V Sattui, but if you actually go to Oakville Grocery and you look straight, you're going and you open the door to Oakville Grocery, but you turn around and look at the Mayacamas, That's about the line where the Mount Veeder stops. Anything to the south of that is Mount Veeder up on the Mayacamas. And it's the higher elevation part of the Mayacamas. And it's a very interesting area. There, it looks like all forest, but there's vineyards there.
There's a lot of vineyards there.
Tom, tell us a little bit about the story about this vineyard. I liked your story about the farmer and how you met him originally.
You know, and you know that's what's great about wine. I mean, we remember these stories of how we enjoy wine together, but you know, for us that produce wines, you know, how a vineyard came about is also the story for us. And this is in 1993, and we heard about this property, Dario and I, at the end of Henry Road. So this is down in the Carneros, and if you're familiar with Artesa Winery, you go about another 2.5, 3 miles past Artesa, and there's this beautiful ranch, about 525 acres in the early 90s, and it was originally purchased part of a Spanish land grant. It's only had 2 owners, and we're the second owner. And
that's incredible.
Elijah Henry purchased the property and as part of this grant in 1855. It was originally a home of Wapo Indians, Spanish and Mexican immigrants. I mean, unfortunately, we lost a little bit of the old fences that were built. We had the Partridge Fire in 17 that we lost a part of the ranch. But still, the old barns, it was a ranch, a dairy farm. It produced cheeses and milk that were sold at the general store in Napa in the early 1900s. And so there was an estate change. Herb Henry, the great-grandson of Elijah Henry, had a tax consequence. And so he had to sell the ranch to pay for the taxes. And it was actually in escrow to a developer that was going to, you know, put little mini ranchettes on this property. And we heard about it, and we were able to finagle a deal during escrow to take over. We actually paid the developer more money so we could get the property. And so we met Herb Henry, and he had lived he was 70 years old when we met him. He had lived his entire life on the ranch. We met him the day he was tanning hides over the fire. And and so when we bought it, we gave him life tenancy on the property, but of course he became an instant millionaire. And so he went out, I'm going to move to town, and he moved to Browns Valley, bought a big house there in Napa. And
so he's gone from no electricity and rustic to I'm going to the big city.
Never had electricity ranch. And then he said he left the house, and he went back to sleeping in a culvert there at the ranch because he said, I just felt like home. He had his old Indian blankets. And anyway,
oh my gosh.
What a great guy. And 5 years ago, you know, we've now lost him. But 5 years ago, we had the Napa Valley Grape Growers has a great event called Stomp. And it raises funds for the Napa Valley grape growers, for the farm workers. And we had a big event at the ranch, and it's like time has stood still. All the old buildings are still there that were built nearly 100 years ago. And it's the most gorgeous property, I think, in the Napa Valley, rolling hills. And so we have about 120 acres planted. We've protected the entire ranch about any further development. So it's been in the land trust for the last 25 years. It will never, ever change. And we have about 120 acres now. We're trying to maybe plant about another 25 acres of cab because it's so good.
It is really delicious.
That's the quick story behind this particular wine. And I just a quick shout out to a friend. You know, we planted Pinot and Chardonnay and the cooler varieties down along Carneros Creek. But then the property goes way up to up to 1,000 foot, and where this Cabernet comes from, you can see down into the town of Napa, and on a clear day, you can see all the way to San Francisco. So it's at the very end of the Mayacamas right there, and it's just this wonderful, just great exposure, very late ripening. you know, this, to me, this wine always has this marker of black olives and black fruits, and
It does.
we just love this wine, and we took a friend up there, Chuck Wagner, who's kind of the king of Cabernet
Oh yeah.
in Napa Valley, and Chuck says, "What are you doing? You got to plant Cabernet." So it was, we planted Cab, and lo and behold, it's become, you know, one of our stars of our portfolio, and you know, they win, you know, all sorts of great awards, and I think
there's something to be said about mountain fruit Cabernet. It is such a different animal than Valley Floor. I mean, Rutherford Bench and everything, it's delicious, but the mountain fruit is spectacular.
Yeah, and I think that
Mount Veeder mountain fruit specifically is spectacular.
There's, you know, some Napa Valley cabs are very hard to drink right out of the bottle. I mean, they're
harsh. I mean, they kind of shake you up and you're like, whoa!
They're big cannons and you need to settle them down. And this one has that plushness and elegance to it. And I think that's the Brooks touch here too, is capturing that fruit.
Yes.
I've always been a huge fan of the Mount Veeder appellation itself. I mean, one of the great stars of the world, Carol Meredith, you know, the great professor who I had at UC Davis, lives up there, grows up there. All these things about the characters that live up there are so interesting. They're so different than people on the valley floor. And I think that the fact that you purchased this piece of
the air's thinner up there, Chris.
Yeah, it is. But the thing is, it's not hot. It's
not
warm,
hot,
but consistently warm. And also the air lifts to these higher elevation kinds of vineyards.
Yes.
So you do have a little bit more ripening in the evening. So this is a slow process of ripening these grapes. And this really shows in here. This is an elegant, sophisticated wine that feels so good on the mouth right now too.
Yep, straight out of the bottle.
It's thing. I didn't decant. I didn't do anything. I just am drinking it and loving it.
Yep. Valley Floor, they're special. They're a little more high maintenance, and they require massaging. They need a spa day in the decanter, and then they open up to this beautiful, relaxed wine. But this, straight out of the bottle, just silky.
And it's the talents, again, of Brooks, where he's able to, you know, manage those tannins, to extract those phenolics, to get all that big black inky color, you know. So his tricks in the cellar, you know,
and it's dark. I mean, this is a dark wine.
How to get that color. I mean, it's a cooler region, so it's usually, you know, color is usually a little bit easier to get. But kind of cap those tannins, so you just don't have those, because it's really easy to get those tannins off.
I mean, right.
So to manage that and to give that richness and that fruit, and these wines do age really, really well. But you know, again, that's kind of our style, is to get something out of the gate that just tastes delicious and lingering and plush, and that's really what this one's about.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, just natural acidity. So like, I always think about that kind of area, that part where you're at for Mount Veeder, of being kind of like the spine of the Mayacamas, where it goes into the bay right there. And so you're up there on that edge, kind of above Browns Valley, and kind of that area where you're looking down. And that is natural, cool air. There's nothing wrong with that. They ripen during the day, but then they shut down, you know.
So it's called the Carneros air conditioning.
I mean, it's a perfectly balanced wine. I mean, that's why judges like me and writers and everything are going to love this. This is genius wine. Fantastic.
It's fantastic. Chris, what would you pair with this one?
Well, you know, I love my lamb. So, I mean, little rack of lamb when it hurt right now. But,
no.
You know, but it's also soft enough in its tannins to do with, like, you could do salmon with this.
I was just going to say, that's what I was hoping you were going to come up with.
If you could get it on the grill, though, you need the grill marks, and you need that.
And you need a fatty salmon.
Yeah, and you need char. So I think things like that would be really good. Duck would be another thing that I would definitely think that would be really good.
Oh, speaking of duck, did you see Liberty Duck is bringing back all the fresh duck?
Oh, they're so great.
They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing.
Those are my neighbors here. And nothing wrong with those guys. And they, you know, it's been a hard year for them because they ship their duck all over the United States. I mean,
Yes, they do.
there's restaurants in New York that need their duck and everything, and they haven't had those restaurants open. So
Their supply chain was shut off, and
Liberty Duck, everyone out there, look them up and you buy some of that
feed
stuff.
people duck, and that's the best.
I've been so spoiled, living the last 40 years here in the Valley and surrounded by these amazing Italian families. And so my father-in-law, of course, he'd go out and shoot ducks. If you're familiar with the Particelli family,
yes,
the olive oil factory. I mean, oh my God, Ray's always out shooting something. And, so whether it's quail or it's duck or rabbit, and this is
or the neighbor.
Things of, foods and, I like polenta and pheasant. And I can't tell you how many times I've had this wine with that. And my mother-in-law has this copper pot that her mother brought.
The polenta pot.
The polenta brought from her grandmother brought from Italy. And
that's the real deal.
And with a big wooden spoon, and then you put it and slap it down in the middle of the table, and then it put some rich teleme or gorgonzola cheese, and then you put the gravy with the polenta, and then with the sauce and the quail or whatever you're doing, the pheasant. Pheasant is with a really rich gravy.
And another one that I was just thinking of too is Don Giovanni. One time I had rabbit raviolis.
Oh.
And I think that rabbit raviolis with this would work. Like
amazing.
Genius.
Absolutely.
Well, Christmas Eve for us, I know we're past the holidays, but for us, we ravioli is our traditional Christmas Eve dinner. And typically we will go find the best Italian delicatessen to find this ravioli. Not this year. Oh no, because we have more time on our hands, a lot more family time. We made ravioli for the first time and nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Turns out Tristan, our son, is the absolute primo ravioli roller. So he got the pasta silky smooth, delicate little sheets. I absolutely got the perfect recipe for a true Genovese style ravioli filling. So I'm definitely going to post that on CellarPass because that was not easy to come by, and it took a lot of figuring out, but absolutely incredible. And this would be, we're talking like that rabbit ravioli. Holy cow. Yes. 1,000 times yes.
I think that this is exactly what we're talking about here. Everyone at home, come on, have you become better chefs at home? Of course you have. We had
God, I hope so.
Actually, but to become chefs. But we're talking about, like, that's why you buy wines like these V Sattui wines, is to have fun at home, cooking around these kinds of wines and coming up with conceptual ideas and putting them to work and getting the family members involved in it. And these are very, very food-friendly wines. I mean, that's the thing about V Sattui, and going back to their legendary beginning, their 45-year anniversary this year, 1976 to the present. It's about food. I mean, it's not about wine and Napa Valley and all this kind of stuff. It's about food. We have to have food and water to live, you guys, just in case you didn't get that memo.
Turns out wine actually isn't necessary, but it makes it so much better.
Well, and as we try to, showcase our wines, I have to give another shout out to, we call him our wine and food pairing guru here at the winery. His name's Mark Golick. He grew up in St. Helena. He was one of his first jobs in the kitchen was working for Cindy Paulson at Mustard's Grill. And, his career just went on from there. And so he's here now with us, and he's done so many great online food and wine pairings for us. And when you come here to the winery, when we're open now. If you need wine, you can come pick it up today.
That's the important thing. You can go, you can take a little road trip.
But when we do get finally open for tasting, which, we have like 5 different venues that you can pick here. If you love food and wine and want to really learn and taste wines like we're having here, our top tier wines, and then talk to someone like we're talking here tonight that really knows food, you want to book a tasting with Mark Golick in the Vittorio Towers. This is the tower of our winery, which is right above me. I'm in the cellar. And he knows so much about food and wine, and he does a lot of online for us now. But if you can come here to the winery and see what he can do, it's just amazing. So that's just one of our great venues that we've had. And
So many great
we
experiences.
can't wait to, I mean, for us, and maybe because we're everything Italian, when we can't be entertaining or having people come to us, we get kind of a little upset. We get a little hungry.
I get it.
Because this is what we love to do. We love to make people happy, and just like you go to an Italian's house, all they want to do is feed you. They want to make sure that you have plenty of wine and plenty of food, and that's, I think, to me, what V Sattui is about. We want to make sure that you have this amazing experience, and of course we make wine, and that's just what we do. But it's not really who we are. What we are
is
this place where people can come and we can entertain, and we have not only a great family of employees that have been with us for so many years,
and generations of families that have been with you.
But more importantly, we have as importantly, we have generations of fans. I mean, generations of I mean, I can't, like you said, Sarah, at the beginning of the show, this was the first winery you visited. I mean, if I had a buck for every time someone told me that,
you'd be a bajillionaire.
Yeah, I'd be a bajillionaire. And because it's just an easy place. But now we have these generations, and people just have these great memories. And that's what I've been tasked with, is just to continue that we can continue on this plane and provide these wonderful experiences. But yeah, I love wine and food, and now we have this great chef from Italy that comes 6 months out of the year, and I mean, I don't think any other winery in America has a Michelin star chef from Italy.
I don't think so.
And he's at his restaurant 4 months, 5 months out of the year. He's the only restaurant in Italy that has a Michelin star that's open less than 6 months a year.
That's fabulous.
And so he comes here, he does all the catering for our events. And we're just, knock on wood, that we have like 50 some weddings on the books. We had 16 site inspections for weddings this last weekend. So, there's a lot of pent up demand for people wanting to get married.
There's a lot of love in the air.
And that's a lot of kind of, and again, the weddings, it's just again, who we are.
And you guys are special in that. I mean, Napa Valley, there's an ordinance where weddings don't happen at wineries, and V Sattui is one of the very special grandfathered ones, and worth every effort to do so.
It's a huge thing, and the ordinances in Napa Valley are very tough. Everyone out there that is in love and wants to get married, it's no joke. You can't just go to a wine. Oh, I love this winery, I gotta get married. It doesn't work.
Can I have an event there? Well, will there be a specific dessert that's in the form of a very white cake? Will there be a certain attendee that everyone says, ooh, look at that dress? Yeah, then it's a wedding. And you're not going to have it at a winery.
I think that's one of the greatnesses. I mean, it's really 45 years is the anniversary this year. And that's amazing, because these are the ordinances. They were set up way back when. And V Sattui is one that was grandfathered in. It's very amazing. And the fact is that you reward these people for their decision to come there, because these wines are amazing, the food is amazing, and the experience is amazing. And that's why people go home after these weddings and have these bottles that they're sharing with others, especially this year, as we keep saying, to tell stories about how they came across V Sattui the first time. And I think that this is such a historic winery for Napa Valley, and it really goes back to the whole Italian heritage that that Dario's great grandfather really brought here, and moving it on. And I think that Castello di Amoroso, which is the second project, which is one of the greatest destinations of all Northern California.
Totally awesome. And if you have the opportunity to do it.
As we were talking about with Tom, is like, I went to Sterling one time, and I was up there at Sterling, and I got to watch the construction of that start back in the 90s, like the late 90s. And when it opened in 2007, the 13 years there have been really amazing too. And Tom, you've invited me to some of those dinners there with the, the Michelin star Italian chefs, and Oh my God.
We're going to get both of you there as soon as we
Yes.
do these again.
Yes.
And
Well, Chris and I are definitely going to do a road show as soon as we absolutely can. And touring wine country coast to coast is going to happen. And
Boom.
we haven't talked much about Dario tonight. And
Yeah.
this, of course, all this that we have would not be
possible without him.
Without him.
Mm.
And, you know, he took a chance on me. And I think, you know, I was sleeping in a tent at Beaufay Park. I was looking for a wine job 40 years ago. And he just thought any guy is willing to sleep in a park. And I just was, you know, I didn't have much money.
You were determined.
And so anyone's willing to do that is going to work pretty damn hard for me. And but he took a chance, but we've had so much fun, and he's been he's become a great partner and a great friend, and we've had so many great times together. And I'm just, you know, I'm so happy for his success. And the castle's been monumental. I was there the day that we first looked at the property. We met Andre Bosque at the Villa St. Michael property, which is the house he lives in, the property. And Andre first had the property in the market for like 25 million. And Dario, you know, of course, there's no way he would ever pay that amount of money. And so, you know, it was just at a time, you know, and he purchased it right after we purchased the Henry Ranch. And so the winery was already in debt getting the ranch. And he said, well, I think I can finagle this thing. And I mean, again, he had no money, but he just fell in love with the property and with that old house. And it, by the way, it came along with a permit to build 100,000 case winery with public tours and tastings. And no one wanted it. And no one wanted it in the early 90s.
Wow.
And it was just the right time.
Dario's like, yes. He saw that he had the
I don't think
vision.
he ever cared about it. I mean, for him, he didn't buy it to build a winery. You know, he just, but, you know, after living there, he said, well, you know, okay, I guess I could, you know, he loves, and of course he owns an Italian monastery. We're partners in a Medici palace that was built in the 1650s, and a little Radio Cofani.
Many stories.
He has a sickness. He owns a chateau in France, and I mean, he just loves this old architecture, and he just did the castle so well. It's so authentic, and it's
very authentic.
And he found artisans, you know, throughout the world, not just in Italy, but also in a lot of the bricks. In fact, the bricks that are in here, the same bricks he brought over, they came from Austria, because he couldn't find the right color bricks in Italy that they built the monasteries and castles out of. So, but he found them in Austria. And so on and on and on. Great attention to detail. And, you know, whatever he does it really well. And that's, I think, what he taught me, you know, is it doesn't matter whatever job that you're doing, do it really well. And all the little details make a difference. And so anyway, a shout out to my friend Dario. He brought me some biscotti today. His good friend from Italy sent him some from a little bakery in Sinalunga, and he knows how I love these cantuccis. And so again, we're just suckers for anything that's really good food. And we're now making wine in Italy. So we now have 6 vintages of Vin Santo under our belt.
Nice.
That's incredible. Okay, well, to be continued.
And so anyway, that's something we can talk about later, but you know.
I think we'll taste it later.
I think so. I think that's going to have to be an in-person recorded amazingness.
You know, you have to cement the bunks in the barrels, and the consulting winemaker at Vittorio, it says there's no way we can open them until they're 10 years old. So we have another 4 years to go. I mean, I hope we're alive by the time we open these barrels.
We got this. I can wait.
You know, we have a lot of fun projects, and you know, I mean, we've done cruises with our customers for the last 10 years. We're partners in a 1,000-year-old castle. So once these things are back open, you can come stay at our castle in a little Italian village in Tuscany. There's just so many layers of fun, and we love everything that's fun.
And that's the way it should be. Absolutely.
The brand is a great representative of Napa Valley and Napa Valley Pride, and also from the old days in the 70s to where it's progressed. I mean, an amazing brand indeed.
Well, cheers to you guys. Cheers to V
Thank
Sattui
you.
and Dario and Tom. And if you want these amazing wines, you can go to vsattui.com and order them. You can call them up as well and pick them up curbside if you're looking for a little excuse to enjoy this amazing weekend coming up. Take a little road trip, order your wines, pick them up. There are plenty of parks in Napa Valley that you can go hang out in. So have a fabulous evening, everyone. Happy Friday Eve. Thank you guys so much. Don't get off the Zoom. We'll be back for the after show in just a moment. But cheers to everybody at home. Thanks for joining us tonight. We love you. We can't wait to sip with you again next Thursday, 6 p.m. See you there. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Woohoo!